Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do the UV layouts in a different fashion than we did before. Um, this way is a little bit more optimal. So you start out the same way, assigning a surface shader. On your out color, you map a checkerboard. You change your place 2D texture to like 30-30, 40-40, something big. Make sure you change the repeat to 50-50 or whatever it is. Okay. So we want, for the most part, we want to fit, especially for something like this where it's just this one object. You know, it's not a huge scene. You should be able to fit everything pretty much in this one square. Okay. We did automatic mapping. It's going to break a lot of these pieces, especially something like this. You see, it breaks it into like a whole bunch of different pieces, and it's really wasteful of our resources. So we don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab everything. I'm going to delete the history. I'm going to go to planar map option box. And what this does is just gives me just like one setup, just like lock everything in. And everything is just locked in. Okay, so it's like, you know, basically just a new default. I'm going to start off here. Actually, I'll start off right up here at this piece. Okay. I'm going to keep that on. I think this piece is inside out. That's why it's turning black. So I'm going to go to mesh display and say reverse. Just being weird. Okay. So start off with this piece. So it helps to use this isolate button. Then we can isolate just that piece. So I can turn this back on, back off. So I want to lay these UVs out. So if I go to UV editor, right now it looks like this. I need to cut a seam, cut a spot in here where this is going to be laid out. I also need to make sure that if I'm smoothing anything, that it is definitely smooth. So like this piece, I was going to smooth it, so I need to make sure I go to mesh smooth, smooth it out first. Okay. Then I'm going to go to edge. I'm going to find this middle edge and double click. Go to polygons, cut edge. Okay, in the UV editor, polygons, cut edge. Now I can right click and go to shell, grab everything here, then say unfold. And what you'll see is that it unfolds both pieces. Now this here, this strip doesn't look very good. That side does look very good. We've unfolded this, but we need to have a seam going the other way. So if I double click here, edge, double click, in this view, it doesn't select all the way around. If I do it in this view, you'll see that it goes straight down. Okay, so sometimes I'll figure out what piece it is out here by clicking a piece. Then I'll come into this view and double click it because I want to go to polygons and say cut, and then I want to go to shell, grab them both again, and say unfold. And that's what we should have. So now if we look at the pieces, you'll see that we have something closer. Now it's still not looking perfectly correct because this is like rotated. If I grab both pieces and I go to my layout options, I'm going to set my packing resolution to 4096. My packing iterations, put it at 3. They can rotate. Shadow looks like 20. Texture map 4096. A little bit of padding, like 5 pixels, 5 tile padding. And I'm going to keep them in here, 1 and 1. Scale, uniform. So what this should do is just relay out these two pieces so that they make more sense. The size of this and the size of that don't make sense right now because this one is huge and that one is tiny. But in the real world, it's a lot closer. All right, I modified some of my settings here. I need to make sure our pre-scaling was set to preserve 3D ratios. I turned off that rotate because it was taking forever because of that. And then everything else was good. So you'll see these are jagged still. And sometimes you do need to tweak them slightly. So I just need to rotate this and scale it down until they're square. There we go. So that's good. So there's that piece. So I don't need to worry about anything else with that one. That one's done. Now there are other tools that will do the stuff for you, but sometimes they don't provide the best results. So taking a little bit of time here will definitely pay off afterwards. So now we go to the next one. So I turned off my isolate to get everything back. Turn my isolate back on, just isolate this one. And then you really have to kind of look at where you think this thing should be cut. Usually I'll cut at like these areas here, so same thing on each side. And I'll cut it like down here. Okay, and as you oops, practice, I should get better and better at it. So polygon cut, grab the shells, unfold, and you'll see like something didn't work out, right? So it doesn't know like where's this. I don't know what happened to that piece. There it is. So somehow I just didn't select it. Now I unfold it, and now it makes more sense. Um, these pieces here, I guess I didn't need to go all the way up with that, so I can just go to edge, and you'll see how this is like a split edge. If I just grab those pieces and then I say move and sew, it puts them back together. Okay, so I have to go in there and click each one of these edges that are split, move and sew it. Then I'll grab my shells again, fold them all, and I'll just rotate these. Okay, so you'll see this is going to give us better results than if we just did automatic. Automatic gives us this, and we still have to come in and tweak it. And for some software apps like Mari, it's you can get away with it just because of how it is. We can kind of quickly work through all this other stuff, but this is preferred. There's one piece. Here's the other pieces, and you can even see on this one these pieces are streaked. There they're not. Okay, so this is definitely a more preferred way to do it. All right, so grab the handle. You usually have to cut the top and bottom off. Remember, if we're going to smooth it, we actually have to smooth it, so this piece went smooth. So I have to cut the top off, cut the bottom off, and then any major direction changes. So this is a direction change here. So I'm just going to grab these. And then I'll say cut. And then I need some line going down the middle. I just double click this line. Say cut. And then I can go to my shell, unfold. Now this will split it probably into too many pieces. So look down here. This is Yeah, that's that piece there. I think actually this is the bottom of that piece. Probably better to split it here. So I cut that, and then I just highlight all this. And then say move and so. Unfold that. If I grab one piece, you'll see it basically makes the entire piece like that big, as big as a shell. So we'll adjust that later, but right now it's fine. There's that cap. That cap is good. This here needs some work. I think what I need to do is just maybe stitch these together. Here, I go this way. So even though this is a cylinder, it's just giving it the look of being rounded because of how it's laying it out. So I'm just going to go in here and grab these edges. You gotta get kind of close to that to see it. And you want to make sure you don't grab the other edges. Like if I grab, if I grab these edges here, it'll merge it with other stuff. So I have to be careful. I only grab those edge pieces. And I could, like, I could double click it, but then it grabs all the way around, which is not something I want to do. Sometimes I'll double click and then I'll control deselect these because I really don't want to I want to make sure that it doesn't accidentally merge with one of these extra pieces. And then also my big piece right there. Deselect that. And then I can't have both sides selected because then it'll merge back onto itself. I have to deselect one of these sides. Okay, so it just makes everything nicer. Then I can move and sew. Grab the shells. Unfold. So it accidentally merged that together. So then I can just cut it. Just gotta zoom in. Now I can go to layout. We should see that layout gives us something closer to our 3D geometry. Oh, there's a piece hanging out here. It was probably the other side I was looking for. Let's move and sew this. Lay it out again. There we go. And then this piece is just rotated. And then it could use a scale too. Now it looks like it's still not like lined up right. Okay, so this is just sometimes you get a piece like this. So that's where I can use one of these. I can go to cylindrical mapping. This creates this big cylinder. So I grab just that shell. There's a little line right here. I'm going to click the line, click the circle, and then rotate. 90 degrees. I'll grab my scaler and just scale this out. You'll see that I get a nice clean piece of geometry here. Now I'm just going to keep scaling this until I get uniformity. that. That's really what that piece should look like this. Now, where it's not going to work right is right here in these edges, okay, because it's not really showing those very good. So I'm going to try grabbing this and then just doing an unfold at this point, or, yeah, I did that same piece. I'm going to try and optimize. 1,000. All right, now there's other tools up here like the UV lattice. If I click on that, it's off. If I click on the UV lattice, I'm gonna have to grab UVs first. I grab this. There we go. Then I could just skew this up just to straighten it. The other thing I could do is try cutting this into pieces. That would obviously help um, too, but we want to maintain as few pieces as possible. That's good. It's just a matter of scaling it to fit. We're still getting some weird spots there. All right, so let's cut it. And sometimes you get weird geometry, you'll definitely get some weird stuff. I'm going to cut it right at those seams, and that will just help lay it out better. This one shouldn't be too big of an issue. I'll still cut it there in the same spot. And sometimes you have to delete history because sometimes it'll like hang on to something. So I'm not sure why this one just keeps coming out so stretched. I'm going to freeze my transforms. Let's see if we get that still. Yep. See, I had to freeze my transforms, and then it comes out much nicer. You don't always have to do that. I'm not sure why this time it wanted me to do that. Okay. So now I can unfold layout. And then it should even up the size of these squares. You can see it's a bit more work, but the results you'll find are 10 times better than not doing it this way. If you have any cuts, I can just touch these up. You'll see that when I grab one edge, it grabs the one that it was cut from also. That's a good way to see what's cut. There we go. All right, so this should be much better. And just to check it, I can go to my checkerboard and really crank this number up like 125. And what I want to see is in these areas here that I have squares. If I don't have squares there, then there could be issues. Okay, squares should be everywhere. And then you could also look around it just to make sure there's nothing else going weird on the surface. Should be good. Okay, you'll see I've only used a few tools. This thing is littered with stuff, but there's only a few in here that I actually use. Let's grab that. UV editor. We'll freeze transform just to kind of cut that off. The other ones are just, I guess, already closer to that size, so they didn't need to worry about it. Isolate it. So this one's going to be no different than the other ones, even though it's a weird shape. We're still cutting off the end. We still have to smooth too, so mesh smooth. I'm still cutting off the end. Now this isn't really cutting it, it's just the texture is cut. And then I'm just going to double click inside this and cut that. Okay, so now I can go to my shell, unfold, and you'll see by default we're getting a pretty decent UV layout on there. Not by default, by, just not a whole lot of effort. Here's the main piece, and then way down here on the bottom are those two little pieces. This one got cut a little bit more than it needed to, so I can just sew it. Good. Okay, and then finally the strap. So you're always going to have these caps. So there, and there. And then there's also going to be that spot where they come together here. I'll cut all those. Unfold it. Freeze transform. Freeze transform just eliminates all the numbers from here so that it basically resets it. Maya's just getting confused. Oops. And you'll see that this was on 1 when I did this. So I need to make sure that I smooth it first. At this point, it's no big deal because everything's already cut. So we just go back to unfold, select the layout. There we go. Cool. Double check our UVs, make sure everything's good here. Yeah, I don't think I really need to cut these. Where I cut them. This is where I looped all the way around and cut it, so I didn't need to do that. So I can just merge those back together. If you accidentally select too much stuff, like if I just did this, and I'm moving so, you get this big mess. Just trying to merge the pieces back together that we already cut off. So you just undo it, reselect, move and so. And even this piece here, we don't need both of these to be separated. Maybe we do. Oh, I missed a piece. There we go. When you have those bubbles on there, you got to zoom in to grab them. Oh, this is me merging into that. Oh, because one's the inside. Never mind. One's the inside, one's the outside. I got confused. And what's nice too, when we do our unfold with bigger pieces, stuff will actually fit inside here. so we'll use up that texture space also. Okay, so let me save this as my UV. All my UVs are laid out. It's just a matter now of grabbing everything, grabbing the shell, and then going to layout. This will take another second because it's going to go through all the pieces, lay out all the pieces together in a nice square format. It does leave a little bit of padding on each one so that there's a little bit of room. But when it's done, we'll come back and take a look. All right, so I finished packing, and it tries to keep everything the same size, all my UVs. So you'll see that in the process of doing that, that it couldn't make this one any bigger. Like, it just didn't fit anywhere else on the screen. That's this cap here, so it's relatively, I mean, this is definitely smaller. Um, I'm not sure why I just didn't scale it down. Let me just freeze transform on all these and do that again. I may have missed a piece. Alright, so I definitely did fix the size issue with that one, so they're all consistent sizes now, which it worked before. But we still have this issue of pieces like this one not being able to get any bigger on screen. So it's really limiting the size of our UVs. So what I can do is just kind of go in here, somewhat regular intervals, and just cut this. If I cut this piece, we'll definitely have more pieces, but then it'll be able to fit more pieces on the screen. Okay, so it won't be like limiting ourselves. All right, so we'll cut this. Grab everything again. Lay it out again. And what we'll see is that we're able to fit a lot more stuff inside this box. You want to pack that box as full as possible without overlapping anything. So like, we'll have to check here. These look like they're pretty close. That's much better. You can see we're almost at the top, which is perfect. There is a little bit of a gap here. We could make that gap bigger by going to our layout options. And where it says shell padding, we could put that up to 10. And put that up to 10. I don't like to have anything too close to each other or too close to the edges, so it's always good to do that. And then of course we want to also check, make sure everything's still laid out correctly. We still have squares. Okay, we could look for other areas, like now this piece is what's stopping us from getting any bigger. So, maybe we decide that just by cutting this, we can fit more in here, right? So we unfold it, or cut this. Lay it out again. Oops. Now there is inside here an auto seams. The auto seams works. Sometimes it works okay, sometimes it doesn't. And your best bet is just to cut it yourself. Look at that, more, a lot more room. Okay, so it's definitely worth the cut. All right, so now let's save. Let's grab everything again. I always grab everything again and close it, reopen it, just to make sure I'm not overlapping anything. You don't want to take this to a texturing tool and then realize that you goofed and you have to redo everything a lot. All right, everything looks awesome. Perfect UVs. Okay, and then just to give you an idea too, like if I duplicated this, I just want to show you why automatic isn't always the best option. I can do anything as far as adjustments on this. I'm just auto doing everything. I have all these pieces. When I lay it out, you'll see that we get a totally different layout. Um, you'll see the pieces are kind of really clustered and smushed together, and there's some pieces that are like super tiny. They really couldn't fit any texture into those areas there. And like I said before, there's going to be some spots where the texture just looks horrible like that. Okay, so um, auto is great for just like quick stuff, especially for beginners. But we really want to advance our settings and do this. There's some other tools that allow us to do this kind of thing. This is the best way to do it inside of Maya because that way our geometry is here. We go out, we do our texturing, we bring it back, do whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to export my selection as an OBJ. Okay, and then just so you can see it too, there's another way to export. Sometimes the OBJ doesn't work, so I go to the game exporter. I say export selection, choose a path. So scene, give it a name, ThorHammer. And then inside here, I want to choose FBX 2014-15. And then make sure animation is off. Everything else should be good. There you go. Okay. So now that should be good. Should be all laid out, ready to go. All right, so I can minimize this. And I'm going to show you how to do the texturing inside of Substance Painter. It's a really great tool. It has a lot of options, really high-tech stuff, especially compared to Mari. Mari, at the time it was good and it served its purpose, but we're just at the point where obviously it's not working in class, so we need to change it. So I'm going to go to New. From this list, you want to pick the PBR Metal Rough HQ. That's the best one for what we're going to be doing. If you wanted something with transparency, you'd have to pick like this one here that says Alpha. So we'll use that one. We select our mesh, and this will take OBJs or FBX. Okay, you'll see the file size difference. The FBX is actually a little bit smaller. The OBJ is a bit bigger. This is what it's going to be the normal map created in. So this isn't a huge deal because you can always modify stuff later. So for right now, we'll just leave it at DirectX. Create a texture set per UDIM. Yep, it's fine. This is the texture. So this is one of the cool things. Like in Mari, we had to set this right at the beginning. This can be changed throughout, which is pretty awesome. So I'm going to set it to 2000. Well, I'll set it to 124, 1024 for now. Then hit OK. All right, so here's our ThorHammer. And the controls are just like Maya's, so that definitely helps. And this isn't like Mari's where it was going crazy. Before we do any starting up stuff, I need to go to my texture sets settings. Here's where we can change that resolution. So sometimes you'll pop it into a higher resolution just to see what it's doing. Here's all the channels we have: base color, height, roughness, metallic, and normal. So in Mari, we kind of like made one channel and piped it into all of them. Where here we can really paint a bunch of different channels. I'll show. Let's go to bake textures. And so what this is going to do is it's going to bake textures into our surface already. So really don't need a normal map for this. I'll leave it on just so you can see it. Anything that has a triangle with an exclamation point needs a high-res mesh. We don't have a high-res mesh, we just have the same thing, so I'm just going to reload that same OBJ. You'll see that that goes away. Okay. There's different settings for each one of these. I'm going to go to my ID and change my polygroup submesh ID. Leave this as hue shift. Ambient occlusion I'll leave as is. I'll play with that later. Curvature I'll leave it as is. Position I'll leave it. And then thickness I'll leave. I have bake. So each one of these texture sets here is each one of our UVs. So we have one square, so we only have 1001. So that's all we need for this one. If we had a bunch of surfaces, each one would come in as a separate thing. Kind of the downside of this is that when you do have multiple texture patches, so if we went outside this box and we went here and here and here and here and here, um, it would treat those as separate objects basically, not put them all in the same thing. All right, so now I'm going to hit B, and this will let me see what my normal map looks like. And you'll see that there is some, some coloration on my normal map. My world space normal, definitely. This is just showing the bumpiness of the surface, like the direction it's moving. Here's my ID one. This is important because it allows us to assign different materials to different objects, which is awesome. Here's ambient occlusion. By default, this came out pretty good. And then here's curvature. So this is actually like the curvature of the surface. Here's position, which is the XYZ position of each item. And then here's the thickness. So cool stuff. Okay, back to M. We can see what this looks like. So all those maps are down here. We can see them. We can use them. If we need to rebake anything, we can hit bake. We left this at the default, 2048, but we could lower it if it goes too slow just to kind of see it. We can crank it up high right at the end just to make sure it looks good. If we need to tweak anything, we can go to ambient occlusion and start to play with these settings to get different results. And then by just unchecking the ones you don't want and then hitting bake, it'll just bake the ones that are checked. Okay. So now here's what's cool about this. Down here is all of our shelf items. Okay, so this is all how we create stuff. So going to smart materials, these are all the different kinds of default materials that are available. If you hover your mouse over it, it'll give you like, here's what it looks like. So let's say for Thor's hammer, and this is obviously, he has his own stuff. Thor's very, um, like metals, right? That's what his stuff is, all metal and leather. So for his, there's no like wood handle here. Obviously, we could customize this to whatever we want. Um, so these bottom ones are all wood. Here's a tank painted material. Here's stainless steel. You can customize all this stuff too. These are all smart materials that are basically just already set up, right? So you can just drop them on, just to make it apparent, like what's going on. Like this red has some silver around the edges. So if I just drag this onto my layers, you'll see, there you go. So around these edges, it has like wear around it. And you'll see that the wear is very, um, like not smooth, it's like scuffy, which is what it should be. Just delete that. You can make your own too. So for something where we're doing a test, it might be beneficial to start off with one of these and then modify it from there. Here's leather, right? So let's do this handle here. So there's two leathers. This is or several leathers. This darker one looks like it's probably closer to the leather that he has. So I'm going to drag this in here, and the whole thing gets leather, which obviously looks all right, um, but not what we want. So what I'm going to do is take this and group it, Control G, and it puts it into a folder. And so on this folder, I can make a mask that basically just says apply this to just here. So I just click on this mask and say add a black mask. Okay, so now this material isn't on anything. It's all being masked out. So I'm going to come up here to this item, which is your polygon fill. And basically you just pick polygons and it fills it with that color. So here's black. It's already black, so it works just like a layer mask in Photoshop. Here's white. I'm on polygon. I click. So now it filled that spot with that leather. If I want to see the mask, I hold down Alt and I click it, and it'll show me where that leather is, or where that mask is. So it's only on that item. Click back on here, the mask is still there, just not showing it. So now I can go into this and maybe customize some settings. So I just open up my arrows. Here's a leather pattern. Um, here's, what's awesome about this. The UV scale is set to 4. So what if I set this to 14 or 11 or 10? Okay, so very quickly I can just change that texture. Um, I don't have to paint anything in this, and for a lot of this, you don't even have to paint any of the textures on your stuff. It's just all done like procedurally, okay, which is really awesome. Here's the edges highlight. So this is like its own thing. If you don't know what something does, you can just uncheck and then recheck. I'm still in this tool, so it's giving me these outlines. So I'm just going to turn off or turn back my paintbrush on. So I turn my damages on and off. You can see what that does. You can see what the edge highlighting does. It just kind of lightens those edges. Here's a blur that's on this leather pattern. It's small, but again, you can kind of turn that off and see what it looks like. There's your base color. So if I click on this, here's the color. So if I say let's say I wanted this to be blue. Okay, so most of these tests have a base color. You can just change that to whatever color you end up wanting for your stuff. So that's pretty cool like that. Okay, so there's not that many things that went into this one. It's just a few different parameters. This one does have um, some extra stuff on top of it. This has some extra stuff. This mask here. If we hit C, we can see what the other masks look like. So like I said before, we're painting base color, height, roughness, metallic, and normal. So this is my base color. This is just like a flat color of what this looks like. Hit C again. There's my height, which is like my bump. Hit C again. There's my roughness. Hit C again. There's a metallic. So it's not metallic. Hit C again. There's a normal, which doesn't really have anything on it. And then here's a normal plus the height plus the base. Okay. Then I can see that that's where it's going to get the major look. I just hit M to go back to the beginning. Now it looks kind of fuzzy, but remember that we're looking at this at 1024. As this comes up to 2048, it'll recalculate everything and make that much crisper. Take it up to 4096. It's going to take longer. You can see the bar going across. Let's recalculate all this stuff. But look at that. Like, awesome. So set it down to 1024 just so we can work at a lower res. Okay. And then if I go to my layer 1, you can make layers, paint stuff on them, delete them, which is awesome. Make layer masks, just like Photoshop does. I'm in my brush right now. That's the brush. My color that I'm painting is white. So if I jump down to the bottom here, there's the color. So I can paint red if I wanted to, and it'll paint red. And then all those parameters, base color, height, roughness, metallic, and normal, are all from here. So if I wanted to paint like thicker stuff, I can just pull this up. And then as I paint, it'll actually look like it's thicker. It looks like it's actually like bumped out. If I go the other way, it'll look like it's bumped in. Okay, so a lot of the details that you see on Thor's hammer here, like this one, like these lines and stuff, we could actually just put those right inside on a bump map. Okay, so it's pretty sweet. Here's the roughness. So if we crank this up, oops, I'm gonna take my height back to 0. Okay, we're not seeing like a huge difference right now. If I take this up to metallic, uh, oh, that's one. Let me take my roughness all the way down. There we go. And what we're doing now is we're seeing the reflection. There we go. Then I pull this up, and now it's like softening that reflection. Okay, so you can see the look that you would get from there. So that's what's awesome about the software is that it allows us to do exactly that. And then using C, we can see what the base color looks like, the height, which right now we only have a little bit of height right there. There's the roughness, there's metallic, there's normal, then there's normal, base, and height. Okay, I want to get rid of that layer, just hit delete. Okay, so so we have this part set up. That was pretty easy to do. Let's look and see what else we have. We have this cap here, we have that cap there. Then we have these ribs and this. They all look like they're about the same material on them. So it's probably like some sort of metal. Like maybe it's like that chrome blue tint. Or maybe there's another like steel. Let's try the steel. We'll just drop this on here. Now because this layer's on top, it's if I turn this off, the steel's on everything. Turn this one on, this leather is covering up the steel there. Okay. So it works just like regular layers inside of Photoshop. Let's see what that cap is. I just think it's just metal too. It's just metal. Yeah, see this one has, the whole thing is leather. This one has like that wooden handle part. Okay, so now what I need to do is I'm going to do another group. And I should probably label these, right? So handle, strap, handle, hammer metal, put a mask on it, fill it with black. The cool thing about filling it with black, or the good thing is, it just wipes it out. So you're basically just going to pick the object you want to be that color. So go back to this, make sure we're filling with white, make sure we're on that. And I'm just saying I want this one to be silver, I want this one to be silver, I want this to be silver. Now this bar piece here is actually composed of different the one polygon, so I can't just click on it because it'll grab everything. I need to select just individual polygons. So if you look at these, there's triangle fill and there's polygon fill. So if I go to polygon fill, I can just highlight and it'll just fill it in with that. It's pretty awesome. Under my where was it? I don't think where that was. No, anyway. So I'm just gonna keep highlighting this. And then I could also go with my paintbrush and paint it if I wanted to. The other thing I could do is do this here. If I just go, grab all this, so I grabbed all those pieces there. Then I could say fill with black and fill that piece with black. I'll fix that in a second. Okay, so do that again. So I'm going to fill this with white. Grabs all of it. Then I'll fill it with black. Just that. Okay, then I can use my picker and just pick white, that object. Okay, so it just makes it easy to grab the stuff just by different ways to select things. Okay, so there's a hammer metal. Take a look and see what it looks like. That's pretty good. That's pretty decent. Let's see. This one is just kind of like could be just a scuffed up metal, just like a darker metal, like not rubber tire. And you could change stuff too if you decided that you wanted to change one of these things, like just for fun. Let's say copper. I could delete the steel from here and just drop copper inside this group. And so now, because the mask is on the group, it applies it to that. So that actually looks pretty decent. A lot fancier than the other one looked. We could even go into this. There's that base material. We just desaturate it. And now we get this really neat look to it. We could even preview maybe the roughness. So this shows you the layer for just the roughness and what that looks like. And then you could take down, like, let's say I want the dirt. I just want that to be rougher overall. And then go to height also. Some of these don't have height on them, like the height box isn't checked. So you may not like. I may not want actual like height on something. I mean, I want my just to show you if I turn the height on, this might look weird, looking like that. What's going on there? Okay, so some of these won't have height or something on there. I'm going to go back to my base material, back to my roughness. There we go, that's good. All right, so that's good. I like that. It matches the leather good. Okay, so now I need um, like another material. So I'm going to make a new material for this handle piece. All right, so I'm going to make a new fill layer. Oops. Yeah, click off. It's putting it inside the group. Let me just pull it out of the group. Okay, so here's my new fill layer. If I just keep it on the bottom, because this one is just the strap, this one is just the hammer metal, this one will just be everything else, which is just that piece. So I make it red or whatever, you'll see how it just does that one. So I don't need to select anything or do a mask for it or anything like that, just right there. So I want this to be like that as my base color. So I'm going to set it up very similar to what they did for theirs. So this will be base thing, base color. We don't need a height map for this part. Um, don't we need a normal map for this part, this part either. And play with the roughness of it. Play with the metallic. The metallic basically just means it's going to be a colored reflection as opposed to just a straight out reflection. There we go. I'll make another fill layer. And basically you want to do everything with fill layers because it allows you the most ability to go between all of these. This one will be like dirt. So on here, I'm going to color my dirt. So I'm going to say, let's say the dirt's, just to make it obvious, the dirt's blue. Okay, just a really different color than my base color. Now I need to create a mask so I can see through my dirt onto the base color. So I go up to mask, fill it with black. And then what I want to do is, if I right click on here, I can add different things that will allow me to create a mask basically. So if I go to add generator, go to here generator, and then I choose mask edit. This allows me to see through it. So right now I'm seeing the blue. I'm not seeing through it because it's created this mask. If I alt click on it, I can see what the mask looks like. So it's actually blending between the two. So I click back the mask, click back on this. I'm going to go down here to texture, and I'm just going to click click on it, and then I can find something that looks decent, like this grunge. So what it does, it takes this texture and it's going to apply it to that mask. In order for us to use the texture, I have to go up to the texture, not texture 2, but texture, and crank this up. And now you'll see that coming through. So it's using this as a mask for that. I can take the contrast up. I can invert it. Now we'll see the blue and then the red's there. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, the blue is not going to be my color, so I can go back to my selection color and then pick an actual color that I want for this. So maybe like a dark red or something. I don't need a height map for this. I don't need a um, metal for this. But I do want to take the roughness and crank the roughness up. Because the roughness will just kind of like help it be a little bit more obvious that it's there. Okay. The roughness is basically like the blurriness of your reflections. That's pretty good. I could, just so you can see, if I take the height, I could look at the height and see if I want to adjust anything. You'll see that it's actually coming through on the other surfaces too. And sometimes this will happen because there's nothing here or here like stopping it. Like the base color. There's nothing in these two stopping it from coming through. So it just automatically will filter through. So I may want to just group these together and call this handle inner. Put a mask on it. And then using my selection mask, let's say fill this with white. And then go to my polygon black. Deselect these parts. Go back to white. Fill in these parts. And then I think I have these selected here, like you can kind of see it. So I'm just going to make sure I'm on this. Make sure that's not part of it. Yep. Okay. Remember, you can alt click on it and see where the mask is. That's where the mask should be, right there. Okay. So now it's not affecting anything else, which obviously could be an issue. It's only affecting that wooden part. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right, so now let's see if we what we can do about this stuff here. This text here. So if we go to Google and we type in um, uh, design on ThorHammer, I'm just going to look up Celtic designs. It kind of looks like that. So let's say this. More settings, advanced. No. One day my brain will work and I will not be sick anymore. Usage rights, reuse with modification. No, let's just say this. I'll save this into my folder. Oops. Okay. So now we'll see if I can remember how to do this. So I'm going to go inside, oops, not that one. It's inside the metal. I'm going to put it above the base metal. I'm just going to do a new layer. Okay. So now I need a texture. And if I click on Import resources. I'm going to add in, I got saved right. Oh, it's an SVG. Of course, it's an SVG. Anything else? Maybe the ping will work. SVG didn't work. Ping should work. Yep. Okay. So I want to use this as an alpha, and I want my import my resources just to my current session. Um, actually, to my project import. So here it is. So now if I drag this out here, I drag this onto base color. Come on, brain, figure it out. I did something wrong here. All right, so I finally remembered. Two things. One, we can't have this rectangular one because it squashes it like that. You have to have a square one. Okay, so I found a square one. I brought it into Photoshop, painted it. Black is transparent, white is opaque. So if you need to, you may want to invert it. And then reload that. And then you're not going to use a regular paintbrush. You're going to use the projection. And then over here, I turned off color, roughness, and metal, and I just have height and normal. So I just drag this onto my height, and then move this slider. So right now, if I take my slider up, and I were to click, you'll see that it bumps it like that. If I take it the other way and click, then it does that. Okay. So it just depends on what you want to do. So I want to keep that basically down pretty far. I can adjust this later. If you hold down S, these are all your hotkeys for changing the stencil. In this case, it's not really going to matter so much because of how we're doing it. All of our sizing is going to come from the brush size itself. So we just kind of size this up. You can use your brackets on your keyboard just like Photoshop. And then it's just a matter of clicking these in here. And maybe hit undo because you light it up. Right. There we go. That's pretty decent. Now on Thor's hammer, he has them on all four sides, right? So that's the one I just did. There it is. So I did the one, right? And obviously I do it to all of them. So I'm gonna hit undo. And then up here is your mirroring. So you can turn on symmetry. Right now it's going that way. So you can change the direction to Y. And do one at a time though. I'm just clicking each one of those things. Good. Good enough anyway. You gotta keep in mind too that if you're zoomed out from stuff, it's gonna look a lot different than if you're like zoomed right on top of it. So sometimes we like are zoomed in crazy amounts, thinking that we gotta get it absolutely perfect, but you don't. Yeah, so that should be good for top and bottom. You can see from back here, it looks like we just have those designs. It doesn't really matter how exactly straight they are. Now we could, if we needed to, let's say we wanted to straighten this out some, um, we could take our height back to 0. Um, take our texture off. So we just drug this onto alpha. That's how we got that. I didn't say that already. And I can just choose shape. So if I click here and I hold shift and click, you'll see how it goes straight across. So basically what it's doing is just drawing a straight line right across there. Now let me see if I can find a harder edged circle. I guess a square will do. I just turn the alpha off. It'll just be square. So you see how it just straightens it out? And you can also change how this is orienting by changing the alignment and just say like camera. That one's alright. And all I'm doing is just it removes some of the height. That's all it's doing. Like this one, maybe it's a little bit too off. It just kind of squares it off. That's pretty cool. Okay, so then I can go in here to my height, and then here's my details. And all I gotta do is just take this down. I'll take it down to 44, let's say, and there we go. That works. And then there's other details too on the hammer, like this line here that we could put in. All right, so I can paint some other stuff in here. So if I hit F5, it creates a perspective camera. So it spins around. I hold shift, it snaps to different views. So you're gonna paint those in there too. If I hit F6, it'll actually create an orthographic, so it's locked on straight. So I'm gonna change my mirroring to Z, so it goes that way. Always look up the hotkeys. Always look up the hotkeys. Okay. So there's like these little patterns here. So if I just choose a different alpha, I'm gonna go with my paintbrush for this. Turn my stencil off. Go to my alpha. There's a bunch of different patterns in here too that you could also kind of play with. I guess I am again fine with just leaving it square. Okay, doing the same kind of thing where I'm just painting the height, turning the color. I do need to go to my height, push this in. I'm also going to come up here to my brush. Up here. This is lazy mouse, so just so you can see, I crank this up, and as I do this, what it's doing is, um, let me add a dark color here just so you can see it, is it kind of takes the average of what your movement is and uses that. So it keeps a nice smooth movement. If I lower this down, you can see it's very blocky. So crank it up a little bit. There's nothing wrong too with painting with a base color, and then you could just turn it off later too. That's definitely a possibility. Undo, pull it down. I need my spacing to be less. I need my size to be a little bit less too. And I could just use clicking. So click on the last point, come down, click on the last point, hold shift, click, hold shift, click. So you see it puts that line right there. Hit F5, spin around. And I put it on the other side too. F6. We take the height color back to 0. And I'm just going to paint that. Oops. Actually, I can, this is a nice thing too. There's an eraser. It sounds stupid, but obviously Mari doesn't have this. It definitely is nice having the ability to erase stuff. Maybe. Let's erase that. There we go. Alright, so now I come underneath, back to my paintbrush, set my height down again, change my direction to X, Y, there we go. I click here, hold down shift, click there, and that went all the way around. I'll change this back to Z. Click here. There we go. You can see how quickly we can add some different details to this. Now, like I said, I can go to the height or the base color, and I can just turn this off. Um, so it goes away. So I just have the height there. But it's easier to see, obviously, when I'm painting it when I have a color on. Cool. So I can turn my symmetry off. All right, so that's it. That's all my texture stuffs. I have my handle strap, my hammer metal, and my handle inner. Everything's good to go. I could go into this here, and just for fun, let's go to my new fill layer, color it black. I'm going to go down to smart masks, not material, smart masks. And what this will do is it'll actually use different properties to kind of pull out some detail. So if I went to my dry dirt, drop it on here, and actually pull out some of the dry, dirty areas and give it just another level of detail on top. Again, you can kind of see it on and off. You know, just kind of scuff it up a little bit more, maybe. I'm going to actually delete this here, that. Add a generator to the mask, do the mask edit. What I want to use is my texture. No, I'll just add that later. Yeah, that's fine. All right, good. Now, just so you're aware too, like if I have something in height, like here's my details, I can copy this layer and I can paste it on any layer too. So if I forget to put it on something, I could paste it into here, into my base color. And then fill that in. In this case, we already had it there, so it wasn't a big deal. But just so you are aware of it, you can do stuff like that. Okay. So now I'm ready to export. So I'm going to save my project, which I haven't done at all. You can just right click out here and say export textures. And for what we're doing, we only need yeah, we can just leave this as the default. So we'll get base color, height, roughness, whatever. We can go to configure and make our own if we needed to. Yeah, should be good. Where we're going to put it, we'll put it here. Source images. Kind of file, TIFFs are good. Targas, either work. Okay, export. And it's finished. Okay. Now, when it exported, just so you can see too, we had this set to 1024, which was our default setting. But remember that we could go up to 4096. Okay. So if we jump back to Maya real quick, just so we can see this in here, I assigned one material to this. So we're using RenderMan. I'll load the plugin. Wait for it to load. There it is. Assign our Pixar surface to it. We can delete all the history too. We're done with everything that way. Okay. And then on the color, let's go find our file. So that should be our base color. So there it is. And you'll see everything matches up perfectly, like everything's lined up. I'm going to take this filter type off. Okay, now if you look at it, you'll see that it's pretty grainy. There's not a whole lot of detail there. So in Substance, I just set this to 4000. It's going to take a little bit longer because it has to up-res all of our stuff. Right now we're working at a low res, so it looks obviously lower resolution. But now that's going to be upgrading all of these, then it should look a lot cleaner. Okay, so I jump back to Maya. I can just hit reload. Give me the same file name. And now we have a lot more detail on there. Okay, very cool. All right, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to change our primary speculars to physical. And under the edge color, we'll go to file. And that should be our metallic. Then under the roughness, that would be our roughness. And all of these, I want to just make sure that the filter type is set to off. The filter just basically blurs the texture slightly. And then if we go down to globals, if we go down to bump, I go to render band and I go to Pixar bump. Uh, File name. I find my normal map. You could use, just so you can see what the difference is here. The normal map is usually like a 3D version of your bump, where the height is usually just a black and white, so it's just like in or out. So on my normal map, there's nothing, so we didn't really bake out anything normal. What we did for the height. Okay. Now there is inside here a normal plus bump or normal DirectX, which is something that we could use for video game or whatever. Okay, so instead of the normal map there, I meant to actually grab the height map. And then here's the scale of this, so we can just set it down to 0.25. All right, let's go to our presets. Let's go light. Actually, let's just do a light rig. Okay, so we've got our lights. I'm going to grab all three and group them and rotate them. I want my main one to be like over here. You'll see I have my open, Photoshop open, I'm recording the lecture, and Substance has not crashed. So, awesome. Knock on wood, though, because it probably will in a second. So there's our image. Now if we added, discard that, ground plane in here, kind of set up a little scene. Grab all my stuff, group it. I group it just so I can rotate it. Just reposition the hammer so it, looks a little more interesting. And there's nothing wrong with me moving the stuff around too. The UVs are not affected by it, by me just like repositioning stuff, so I can move stuff around as much as I want. Even like some slight movements of these. I'm gonna hit B, and I can just kind of nudge that in. Some slight movements of these are fine. You just don't want to go anything crazy because that's gonna start stretching your texture. I'm gonna hold B, make this bigger. And this part's not like incredibly important. It's leather, so if there is some minor stretching, it's not gonna be a huge deal. Especially with the way I'm moving this, it shouldn't really give me a whole lot of issue with the texture looking odd. That's pretty neat. All right, so maybe you take this light up. double the intensity of that one. This one's pointing at something different. This one might be stuck in the ground. No, some of these I don't need shadows on them. Like that one I don't need shadows. This one I don't need shadows. Just want shadows on that main light. A little bit too much light. And maybe even just giving some coloration to the light will help. Yeah, kind of go with this orange color. And this light I'll tint just a little bit different, like blue. Orange and blue usually make a good color combination for lighting. You know, much better than what we had. Okay, I think my bump might be a little bit too strong. You can see it's kind of really pushing it out. Grab this. Now this is for all of it, so it's not just like the one piece. The height map is on all those pieces. Okay, so now for something like this, you want 3000 in one of the directions, 2400 in the other. This is a pretty square-ish one. I'm going to click on the blue circle, click on View, Camera Settings, Vertical, and I'm just kind of looking to see how it fits. You know, maybe I do want to take the height down some to like 2000. And what that does is it gives me less height, but then I can fill more of the screen with this. It's good. Okay, sampling, I can probably take it up to 256. Everything else should be good there. We can export our Z. We'll do an ambient occlusion pass after too. We didn't use all of these textures. Like we did use this metallic one. We did use the height. We didn't use that one. Our mixed AO was blank, so we really didn't get anything out of that. Here's our roughness. The roughness really is like one of the better ones. Bump roughness and reflection and color are like the four main ones. Let me go back to my settings here. Now that I know that this is going to be 3000, I'm just say maintain. So I set to 600 real quick just so I can do a little test render. I just want to check out my shadows. I think I do want to have a little more of a shadow on here because it looks like it's kind of floating. Now I don't want to move my camera, so if I click on View, Bookmarks, Edit Bookmarks, and say Render, and hit Enter. Now when I move my camera, I can go here. Let's do it. These light setups are good, but they're just sometimes they're just wonky. So I just move my light so I get more of a shadow there. I go back to my bookmarks, hit render, it jumps right back. I can test it out again and see. Let's see if I can take that Minimize that. So the reason that it's not very visible is because it just needs to be scaled down. The light's so big um, that it's blurring the shadow so much. Try taking this up to maybe 2. I'm taking it up to 10. And see what it's really affecting it. It's not. Something's wrong with that light. This happens from time to time when your lights just literally stops working. So just gonna make a new light. I hit T so I can use this pointer. I'm gonna pull it back. Now I'll give this a little bit of color like we had before. Okay, it should be good. Go back to my bookmark. There we go. So now I'm starting to get the shadow in there. That light was just so dim, I guess, where it was at. So I need to turn my other lights down some. Just so I can see it. And it could be the angle too. I'm gonna try a different angle. Trying to avoid having that background visible. That's neat. All right, let's go to outliner. I'm gonna zero these lights out. It's a good idea to just put 0 for them. Then render. Then you can see what's what. You can see what light's doing what in your scene. See, that doesn't look too bad like that. I just need maybe just another light on the backside. Yeah, something like that. And this is the one I'll color blue. You can see the color contrast here with the orange and the blue. And what's neat about this too is that you'll really get a really good depth of field when you have this set up on here. I'm gonna go something maybe a little more yellowy orange. Nope, too yellow. I mean, you can try extreme stuff, but like that's gonna be way too much. There should just be a tint of light like this. Okay, and then my ground needs to have a render man material on it. Nothing fancy, just some sort of material, some sort of color other than default gray. Oops, and white is just way too bright. Let's take the roughness up, take the gain down. We're trying to find that sweet spot where it looks like it's white, but not blown out white. You can also add a little bit of reflection in here and just roughen it up. Get a little bit of reflection down there. Maybe even taking this to a darker color might look kind of neat. More reflection, darker here. Okay, all these are low res, testing it out, testing it out. All right, so yeah, that's good. Okay, let me save my. I don't want to save my camera view. I'm going to change it in a second anyway. I already changed it once. I just want a little more dynamics here, so I'm going to go with maybe 24 focal length, just to really emphasize that. But I want to make sure first that yep, it is touching that. So by doing this, when I do my depth of field, I really get a nice depth of field on it. If I go 50, it's like shortening it, so you don't really get like a whole lot of depth on there. And it does feel a lot bigger though. 80. That hammer just feels huge. Yeah, I think 25 was a good one. All right, so now I'll save this as my camera view. Edit bookmarks. Keep that one. Okay. Now I go back to my render settings. 3000. Um, yep, and the rest of this is the same as we've done before. Nothing too different here. And you'll see the time it took me to do this, 1 hour and 38, and that's explaining it. Eventually you'll get to that point where you can do all of this stuff within obviously less time because you don't have to explain it. And all your stuff is already kind of set up, so we'll just go a lot quicker. But it only happens when you work at it, work at it, work at it to get it to that level. All right, so I'm gonna let that go, and then I'll take it into Nuke and show you the end result when I'm done. I'll do the ambient occlusion pass also once this is done. All right, so here's the finished product brought back into Nuke, rendered out. Just to show you the stuff, I have my beauty pass. That's just the color one. Go to my depth, AO. This setup here like works for so many different things over and over again. So you can just keep using that same setup. Um, here's my AO. This is after the grade. This is before the grade. So again, you can come in and play with how dark you want some of those areas to be. If you go this way, it'll actually darken these gray areas. Will actually get darker too. So usually you want to have the whites where you like no adjustments, and the black is where you have adjustments. And then always look at here is the other one. So I hit one there, and I hit two there. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can really see what the difference is in having the AO and not. It really helps pull it out. Lower my depth. On each one of these, because of my different file size, I had to make sure that I changed my resolution to the current resolution. So on each file, 3000 by 2000. I also clicked in here and hit S. Oops, there you go. And then change this full size format to 3000 by 2000. So that was good. I adjusted my depth of field, obviously choosing a different focus point because the one for the Pokeball is going to be obviously different than this one. So just like that. I also adjusted how much blur I had at 100, which was what the Pokeball was, because we really didn't have much. Lower this depth of field too. We really didn't have a whole lot of blurriness on there, but on this one you can see there's a lot of blurriness happening, especially because of the perspective that I chose. You really get a lot of uh, depth of field on here. Okay, so I'm toning these things down. It's good, just a little bit. It's all you really need, just a little bit. And the background didn't really get used in this one because there was no background. It was my background was this image. So I still went in here and changed the size of this to 3000 by 2000 because it had to change. If I went with something bigger, it actually would adjust my size of my end image, and it obviously looks weird. So gotta make sure that everything is the same size. The only thing I did different here is I added in a roto just so I can get some vignette on this. Just so you can see what this looks like without the vignette. There it is without the vignette, and there it is with it. And it definitely is a subtle thing, but I think it really helps read better when you have that vignette on there. And I can also do a grade right at the end too. Maybe just adjust my darks and lights. You could also tint things, like if I went to this, I wanted a little bit more red or a little more blue. Okay, so this is the way I'm tinting it using the lift. And this is basically tinting the darker areas. If I went to my gain, this will tint the lighter areas. Okay, so you can obviously adjust stuff like that. Also, just so you can see how I did this this vignette. I clicked off in Nowhere's Land and I created a dot node. So you just type dot, and I'll just delete these. This, keep him around for a second. And I connected one arrow of the dot node to this merge, and then I added, just clicked off to Nowhere, added another merge, and the B is going to go here, and the A is going to go there. Okay, and then this arrow from the right can go here. Now what this is going to do is it's basically merging the image on top of itself. Okay, I'm going to change this mode to multiply. So basically the darks get darker and the lights pretty much stay the same. Now it looks a lot better like that than it does here. This looks washed out compared to this. Now the reason we do this is because I want to add a roto. So I just hit the click off to Nowhere, hit O for roto, and then on the right side of this, you'll see there's a mask arrow. I drag this to the roto. And so now what I can do is just draw a shape. So if I go here to ellipse, I draw a small ellipse. You'll see that right in the center, it's really dark. Okay. I'm going to take this whole shape here and just rotate it. There we go. Now I'm going to leave this shape there, but I'm going to click on each point, and I'm going to drag this line out. And this line is essentially the feathering. Click, drag that line out. Click, drag that line out. Click, drag that line out. We're basically creating a gradient where in the center it's completely dark, then out here it's really light. Okay, I want to invert it so it's the other way. So on the roto, I go to the inverted, and now it's opposite. Okay, then you can play with the fall off too. Control the way it looks. You can play with the opacity and control how that looks also. And then from here, it's just simply a matter of going to your right, choosing the correct folder. Oops. Images. Gonna ThorHammer final.tif. Make sure you put the .tif on there, otherwise it won't save it as an extension. And then you hit render. Okay, so that's that project. This is good just because it reviews the concepts we've already done, but then just add some other stuff on top of it. Okay, so have fun with it. Do this exact one just so you can follow along exactly, and then if you decide you want to do something different, then you could obviously do that on your own time or for a different project.